In this episode, we talk about how natural disasters in Punjab have been compounded by human actions. We also talk about a case from Indore where two infants allegedly died of a rat bite. But we begin today by talking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's likely visit to Manipur and two key announcements made in the run up to it. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. More than 2 years after ethnic violence broke out in Manipur, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to visit the state later this month. The conflict between the Métis and the Kukis, which began in May 2023, has so far claimed 250 lives and displaced more than 57,000 people. Though it is important to note that since February this year, the state has been under president's rule and has seen a relative calm.
Since the ethnic violence in Manipur, which began on May 3, 2023, the two communities, Meiteis and Kukis, who used to stay together both in the valley as well as in the hills, have got geographically separated.
That's the Indian Express's Deeptiman Tiwary, who has been reporting on the conflict for the paper.
Meiteis have been confined to the valley and Kukis have withdrawn to the hills, and the two populations have found it difficult to go to each other's areas for fear of any reprisal or attacks.
But over these past 2 years, despite repeated demands from the opposition, the Prime Minister has not visited the state. That, however, may change soon, with sources indicating that Modi is likely to visit later this month. Ahead of this visit, the centre has also made two key announcements, including saying that the Kuki-Zo Council has agreed to open National Highway 2. To understand the significance of the visit and these announcements, we speak to Deeptiman in this segment. Deeptiman, how significant would you say Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to Manipur is?
It's very significant because this will be the PM's first visit to the strife-torn state in more than 2 years, since there has been an ethnic violence in the state and more than around 250 people have died and thousands have been displaced. So the Prime Minister of the country visiting the state after 2 years is a very, very significant development. We understand that the Prime Minister is going to be visiting, and this is still a likely visit. The dates are not confirmed, but what we understand that because the Prime Minister is going to be there in Mizoram on 13th and then in Assam on 14th, so it is likely that the PM will visit Manipur, which is the neighboring state of Mizoram, on the same day, that is the 13th, and probably have some public addresses both in the valley as well as in the hills in the state. And he might even announce, certain kind of rehabilitation package for the state, some development projects in the state. These are all things which are being discussed. We do not exactly know how things will be announced, what will happen. But these are the likely scenarios which are possible during Prime Minister's visit to the state. We don't yet know whether he will also be meeting civil society groups on either side of the ethnic divide in the state. But that's what we know as of now.
Right, and ahead of the PM's likely visit, we understand that the Kuki-Zo Council, based in Churachandpur, has agreed to open National Highway 2 for free movement of commuters and essential goods. Could you talk about just how significant this move is?
It's a very, very significant announcement which the government has claimed that the Kuki-Zo Council has agreed to open National Highway 2, which goes through Kangpokpi, because in the past there have been problems in both movement of goods as well as commuters, that is general public, through Kangpokpi. Let's remember that after the imposition of the president's rule in the state in February last year, the Union Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah had announced that there would be a free movement of people and goods in the hills as well as in the valley and across the state. And around that time, the security forces were supposed to ensure movement of people. But when this movement was started on March 8, there were clashes between Kuki people and the security forces in Kangpokpi, and one person had even died. So since then there has been a problem, and this entire thing of free movement had been put on the back burner, and things were not moving as swiftly as the government wanted. There have been some informal movements on either side of the divide, but formally what we expect to happen, that Meitei people can cross through the hills and Kuki people can come to the valley for whatever needs that they have. So whenever there has been in the past, there has been any kind of attempt at making free movement, there has been some or the other law and order situation. So the government claiming that Kukizo Council has agreed to open Kangpokpi, and Kangpokpi has been one of the trouble areas where violence has taken place. So it's very, very significant, because let's remember, free movement was one of the most important initiatives that the government wanted to initiate.
Right, and this move is especially significant because Imphal, for instance, has only one airport, and to be able to fly out of the state, Kuki people have to travel all the way to Aizawl if they want to catch a flight. And as far as the Métis are concerned, they have to cross the Kuki populated hills to go anywhere. But besides this, the center has also announced a new suspension of operations agreement with the Kuki militant groups. Can you talk about what this agreement is and the kind of changes it will bring on the ground?
Yes, again, a very, very significant agreement with Kuki militant groups, because let's remember that Kuki militant groups had entered into a suspension of operation agreement with the government in 2008, and this agreement was renewed every year. But just before the ethnic strife began in the state, there was trouble with the agreement, because the Manipur government, then headed by Biren Singh, unilaterally withdrew from suspension of operation agreement with at least two groups. After that, and since then, the agreement has been in a limbo. So this is essentially a ceasefire agreement where, the army does not attack the militant groups do not attack security forces, and do not create any kind of law and order situation. They stay in their designated camps. Those are the broad agreements of suspension of operation agreement which existed earlier. In light of the ongoing ethnic strife in the state, government wanted to renegotiate the terms of the Sioux agreement. Now that this agreement has been signed, it is significant in the sense that, there are some new terms. These new terms include that there are around 14 militant camps. Around 7 of these militant camps are located on the fringes of the valley, which is, where the valley, that is the Imphal Valley, which is dominated by Meiteis, meets the hills, which is dominated by the Kuki populations. So, Meiteis had been alleging, it is from here that all the attacks on Meitei villages were being carried out. Obviously, this is an allegation that Kukis have denied, but security forces say that there is some truth in this. And so this was one of the key demands, and also one of the key things that government needed to achieve to ensure a semblance of peace in the state. So the agreement says that 7 of these camps will be moved back. Some of the smaller camps will be consolidated into bigger camps. They have also got Kuki militant groups to agree to territorial integrity of Manipur. This is again a very, very important term which has been inserted in the agreement, because this had been a long-standing demand of Meiteis, that the territorial integrity of Manipur cannot be compromised in any way, because Kukis, since the start of the ethnic strife, have been demanding a separate administration. So there has been this thing that does the separate administration mean a separate state or a separate union territory for Kukis, which the Meiteis have been vehemently opposed to, because they do not want the state to be divided. The agreement also mentions that a political solution has to be negotiated between Kuki militant groups and the government of India, and that political solution will have the demand for a separate administration. Then there are certain other issues which have been inserted in the agreement, which includes that the weapons in the camps will now be kept with the camps of the CRPF and the BSF. So these are some of the key points of the agreement.
But Deeptiman, all this sounds like it's for the Métis. So what's in it for the Kukis?
Yes, it's a good question, because it appears that government was responding to Meitei fears in drafting the agreement. But let's remember, one of the key Kuki demands was removal of Biren Singh as the chief minister of the state, because they felt that he was partisan during the ethnic strife and even played a role in fomenting the trouble. So that has been taken care of with the imposition of President's rule in February last year. And Kuki groups had also been saying that we have at least been in an agreement with the government, but groups like the United National Liberation Front, which is a valley-based insurgent group of the Meiteis, that remains a banned organization. And since the ethnic strife has got a foothold in the valley and has been freely operating, so government has also entered an agreement with the UNLF, a peace agreement, and similar camps like the Kukis have. Those camps are being built for UNLF also. Their cadres are being given identity cards so that they can be identified and they do not move around as freely as happened during the strife. So some of these key demands have already been taken care of by the government, and so the government was able to ask Kukis to now take their share of the steps that they needed to take.
And so, what kind of a reaction have these announcements led to in the state?
Interestingly, the reaction has not been, one could say, to the satisfaction of the government, because, despite these negotiations with the groups involved, there has been a negative reaction in the hills as well as in the valley. So in the hills, Kukizo Council, which the government claimed has agreed to open Kangpokpi stretch of the National Highway 2, they issued a statement the same evening that government seems to suggest that we had blocked the National Highway, but we had never blocked the National Highway. We have only made an appeal to the people to cooperate with security forces for free movement of people and goods. And the kind of suggestion that the government has made in its statement, in its announcement, is something that we reject. Additionally, they have said that our announcement, our appeal, was only to the extent of opening NH2 in Kangpokpi, and we do not support free movement or unrestricted movement of Meitei people through the hills. In a way, this entire announcement of free movement has not been taken well in the hills. On the other hand, Valley civil society groups like the Kokomi have raised objections to the extension of Sioux agreement. They have said that this gives legitimacy to the Kuki militant groups because they believe that they are narco-terrorists and they should actually be punished rather than, entering into an agreement with the government. So even the Valley has not taken well to the Sioux agreement. So sort of this has created, despite two significant understandings and agreements being reached by the government with groups in Manipur, it has sort of still continued to maintain an atmosphere of tension in the state.
And could you talk a bit about why these groups have reacted this way? What is that they wanted the government to do?
So, see, I think, the government could have handled this matter more sensitively, and probably, there are voices within the security establishment which say that probably instead of the government announcing the National Highway 2 has been opened, the Kukizo Council should have been allowed to announce it because they were the ones who were blocking it. With the government announcing, and that too using words like Kukizo Council has agreed to open NH2, which goes against the claims that they have been making, that we have never blocked it. So they were forced to issue a sort of a rejoinder to what the Ministry of Home Affairs claimed in its statement. And so probably, this matter should have been handled more sensitively. Let's remember that, this is sort of the same mistake that the government made while pushing for free movement. Things like in a strife-torn state where people have been psychologically and geographically separated, free movement should ideally have been a gradual process which would have organically evolved with security forces and civil society groups coming to a behind-the-door understanding and sort of, letting daily needs of the people take over, their anger or resentment. And this would have sort of naturally evolved into people coming to each other's areas, and Kukis coming in, catching flights from Imphal, and Meiteis driving their vehicles through the hills and going out of the state. But the Home Ministry sort of set a deadline of March 8 for free movement to start. The moment Home Ministry set a deadline, certain Meiteis civil society groups announced a march to the hills on March 8. This was seen as very provocative by Kuki groups. So probably there are certain things, especially in the Northeast, which have to be managed quietly rather than through grand announcements.
Also, Deeptiman, how concerned is the security establishment about the Prime Minister's safety during his visit to the state?
So, see, obviously, Prime Minister's visit to any part of the country, has to be a very, very secure visit because he's a very, very important person. During his visit, there cannot be a law and order situation in a state, or there cannot be certain kind of protests. So all that the security establishment as well as the Manipur administration has to keep in mind before giving it a go ahead that yes, now the PM can visit, because his security is of paramount importance. Also, even if his security say is not breached or whatever, if the Prime Minister visits and there is a law and order situation in the state or there are protests, it will sort of embarrass the Prime Minister. Just to give an example of how fluid the situation in Manipur is currently, is despite the government reaching these understanding and agreements with Kuki militant groups. While on the one hand it did so, the United Naga Council, which has considerable influence among the Naga tribes in the Naga dominated areas of the state, has announced a trade embargo beginning September 8. So that will become another headache for the Manipur administration and the security establishment. So things are still fluid and the government is trying to manage things, although foolproof security arrangements are being made. But as I said, it's not just about whether the PM security is going to be, which is highly unlikely. Yet in the presence of Prime Minister, if there is no tranquility or peace in the state.
And Deeptiman, finally, can you talk a bit about some of the major challenges that the people in the state continue to face, especially considering that many of them are still living in relief camps far from their hometowns?
Yes, it's a huge, huge human tragedy because thousands and thousands of Kukis were staying in Meitei areas, Meitei dominated Imphal Valley. Similarly, thousands and thousands of Meiteis were staying in the hills which are dominated by Kukis. Since the ethnic strife took place, villages and houses of either community were burned down and Meiteis had to flee their homes in the hills and come to the valley. Kukis had to flee their homes in the valley and go to the hills. Now all these thousands and thousands of people are staying in relief camps in pitiable condition. There is an issue of food, clothing, shelter, health care, children's education. Everything has been affected. And imagine people have lost whole life's earnings, their houses are gone, they have to completely restart their life. So it is a very, very dire situation in the state for the victims of the violence. Also, because of this geographical separation of two populations, it has become very difficult to administer the state because, a state where people become divided on ethnic lines, it becomes very difficult to sort of have a cohesive approach to administration. And that's not an ideal situation to have in a state. So all these things are going to take a lot of time to settle down and come back to normalcy in the way that it was before May 3, 2023. But the first priority obviously is going to be that the people who have been displaced during the ethnic strife, are sent back to proper homes, they are given proper shelter, they are given proper homes. And I'm sure the Prime Minister's visit was going to address these issues and sort of even announce a rehabilitation package that could facilitate it.
Next, we talk about the flood situation in Punjab. The floods sweeping through Punjab this year, which have claimed at least 43 lives, have revived memories of 1988 when overflowing rivers turned vast stretches of the state into disaster zones. This year, heavy monsoon rains have once again left a large number of districts submerged, from Gurdaspur and Pathankot in the north to Firozpur and Fazilka in the south. But experts point out that what sets this year apart is not just the intensity of the rainfall, but the role of human activity in worsening the impact. The parallels with 1988 are striking. Back then, heavy rains forced the release of water from Bhakra and Pong dams, inundating large areas and sparking unrest. Similar patterns emerged in later floods in 1993, 2013, and 2023 as well. To understand how natural disasters in Punjab have been compounded by human actions, my colleague Ichha Sharma speaks to the Indian Express's Divya Goyal.
Divya, as we know that Punjab has been hit by devastating floods across districts. So, could you start by talking about, what has been the immediate impact?
Yeah, so as we know that the undivided Punjab was the land of five rivers. So now after independence, we have three rivers, perennial rivers that flow on the Indian side. That is Satluj, Ravi and Beas. So this year, all three rivers have been in spate, and that is why we witnessed massive floods here. So according to the latest figures that we have received from Punjab government regarding the floods, a total of 37 people have lost their lives across the state during these floods as of today. And although there are 12, 13 districts which are the worst hit, but the state government has declared all 23 districts affected by floods. A total number of 1,655 villages have been affected, and 3.55 lakh people have been displaced. In addition to this, the government has rescued over 19,000 people and taken them to safer places. But also, what is the most heartbreaking is that Punjab is a land of farming, and almost 1.75 lakh hectares of area under agricultural crops, mostly paddy, the standing paddy crop which the farmers were growing for the upcoming harvest season. It has been completely devastated across districts. So, yeah, the human and the property and the agricultural loss have been massive across the state.
Right, and so in what way are floods this year similar to the ones the state witnessed back in 88?
So, Punjab had witnessed devastating floods in 1988. In terms of the lives lost, 1988 floods were much bigger in scale. Over 500 people had died in Punjab during 1988 floods. So, what makes people again remember those floods is the timing. Even in 1988, the floods were reached their peak in the month of September, when the months of July and August had already passed, the monsoon months. And it was during September that the state witnessed incessant rainfall, and that forced the authorities to release water from Satluj and Ravi, the Bhakra and Pong dams, due to which the state was flooded. So, according to the IMD report, while the rains in Punjab that year had started in March, the worst had come in September when the three overflowing rivers wreaked havoc. From Gurdaspur to Ludhiana, Jalandhar to Sangrur, almost the entire Punjab was drowned. And the worst happened in the last week of September. That is when, from September 23 to 26, the floodgates of Bhakra and Pong dams were opened after a continuous rainfall of 3 days in the catchment area, claiming that the floodgates of both dams were opened to release the water as a conspiracy to finish Punjab. The militants that time had also assassinated then BBMB chairman Major General B.N. Kumar in November 1988. So that time Punjab was also under the grip of militancy, and the militants had assassinated BBMB chairman, alleging that it was a conspiracy to finish Punjab, that so much of water was released from the dams.
Right, and Divya, we understand that studies point to a dual reality. That floods are, of course, natural disasters, but poor planning magnifies their impact. So, talk about what are some of the biggest man-made factors that, have made Punjab more vulnerable to floods over the years.
Yes, it's not just 1988, but several times after that, that Punjab has been flooded, be it in 1993 or most recently 2023, and before that in 2010, 2004, 1995. It has been several monsoons that have flooded Punjab, but we simply can't just blame it on rivers. The human factor has played an equal role, and multiple studies by the scientists have been conducted over the years on why Punjab is flooded. So while they say that, of course, floods are not entirely man-made, they are a natural disaster which are caused by overflowing rivers during the monsoons. But what has been equally emphasized in these studies are several human factors. So, if we talk about those human factors, it includes poor management and lack of cleanliness of drains, canals, the choked natural waterways which allow the river water to seep inside the earth, weak and poorly maintained dusibans, lack of green cover, deforestation, illegal mining, mindless constructions in floodplains and riverbanks. So in Punjab, there are several districts by the rivers where the floodplains have been encroached, which literally means that you are blocking the way of the river. If you will block the way of a river, then there will be floods. And also, the most importantly is climate change. So in 2023, when Punjab witnessed floods, the experts had said that it was because of climate change as Himachal Pradesh received unprecedented rainfall and the catchment area of all the dams in Punjab is in Himachal Pradesh. So that had worsened the flood situation. And also, there is another human factor since Punjab has three perennial rivers which flow throughout the year Satluj, Ravi, and Beas. The successive governments they have failed to desilt them, which has reduced their water carrying capacity. So, these studies have been constantly ignored. No action has been taken to clear the way for the rivers, to prepare for the monsoons, and it would be wrong to entirely blame a god or nature or rivers for this tragedy. Human factor has played an equal part.
And as you mentioned, that Punjab has seen repeated floods, and each time committees and studies pointed out preventable lapses. So, what factors were identified after these floods?
Yeah, so the most important thing that these studies have pointed out from time to time is that the temporary embankments and the dusi bands they have to be strengthened. They need regular maintenance so that whenever monsoons arrive, they are not breached. The waterways, the choked drains, they have to be cleared, they have to be cleaned, which is the basic duty as well as the basic work of any state's irrigation department. But certainly there are loopholes due to which that is not done properly. And when the monsoons arrive, the water overflows. And also, as I said, that the rivers have not been desilted, and the studies have recommended from time to time that they should be desilted so that their water carrying capacity doesn't lower down. And also, most importantly, I spoke to Dr. Gurdev Hira. He's a very renowned retired scientist from Punjab Agricultural University with specialization in water. And he said that, the mindless constructions which are being done in hilly areas, in hill states like Himachal Pradesh, and the way the trees are being cut all over, that is a major, major reason for floods because that is what is leading to climate change. And if the damage is being aggravated due to human factors. So why Punjab is more vulnerable to such disasters is because we have three rivers which flow throughout the year and they swell up during the monsoons. And also not just the Punjab on the Indian side, which we called East Punjab, but also the West Punjab, which is on Pakistan side. The entire Punjab is at the high risk zone in coming years because the climate change is simply, it's just escalating and it's getting worse. So being the land of five rivers, that is what you call Punjab. Panj means five and Ab means rivers. So Punjab is at the highest risk of floods in coming years due to climate change.
And lastly, Divya, we know, and as you mentioned at the start, dozens of people have lost their lives and hundreds of villages have been destroyed. So, how are communities coping with this scale of displacement?
Yeah, thankfully in Punjab, somewhere where we are really different, people of Punjab are very different from other states, is that, it's a Sikh majority state, and here everyone follows the principle of seva, the tradition of seva, which was imparted by the first Sikh master Guru Nanak. And here, the langars, the community kitchens, they are served in every village whenever such a disaster happens and the entire community gets together, irrespective of their religion. It's not just the Sikhs, but also the Hindus, Muslims. Everyone gets together to make a food, to cook food in bulk for the entire village. So that's how it's going on because more than the government help, it is the social organizations and the NGOs which are helping the people at the village level right from food, groceries, mattresses to even boats. We require so many boats to rescue people. People are even donating boats to the villages. So the entire rescue operation is not just dependent on the government machinery, but it is the ritual of seva and langars which are keeping the spirits high. And that is why it is said that people of Punjab are always in Chardi Kala, which means they are always in high spirits because they help each other. They live in a very well bonded and in a very united way at village level. So whenever something happens in one village, the entire district gets together. Yeah, so we can say that it's not just the government which is trying to help people as much as they could. It is the seva of the NGOs and other philanthropic organizations which is keeping Punjab still in high spirits.
And in the end, we talk about a tragic case from Madhya Pradesh where two infants were bitten by rats in the neonatal ICU of the Maharaja Yeshwantrao Hospital in Indore. Both the infants passed away. The Indian Express's Anand Mohan reported that Devram and his wife Manju, parents of one of the infants who died, said that they had anxiously waited several days for news about their infant daughter, who had been admitted to the NICU with serious congenital complications. However, no information came from the hospital, they claimed, and they were told by local tribal activists that the infant had been bitten by a rat and died days later. The couple staged a protest outside MGM Medical College, which is attached to the hospital, along with activists from the Jai Adivasi Yuva Shakti group. The parents said that their daughter was in a good condition when they left, and that the hospital had promised to contact them once her condition improved after surgery. They said that they never abandoned their daughter. Devram claimed, quote, "We waited outside the ICU for 2 days but were neither allowed to see her nor meet the doctor," unquote. He added that due to a lack of money, the couple had to return back to their village, and then they got the news that their daughter had died due to a rat bite. According to Mohan, MGM Medical College Dean Dr. Arvind Ghangoria acknowledged the hospital's failure while rejecting that the cause of the death was the rat bite. He said, quote, "The girl's death is not due to the rat bite. She was bitten by a rat and strict action was taken against all officials," unquote. Adding further, quote, "The parents of the deceased were not found at the time of the death, so we had to inform the police as per procedure along with the other medical staff that the parents of the child were not present at the time of the death," unquote. The hospital has suspended 2 nursing officers and removed a nursing superintendent following the 2 cases of rat bites. Show cause notices have also been issued to the nursing officer in charge and the head of pediatric surgery. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's episode was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Ichha Sharma, Shashank Bhargava and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.